Hey guys, welcome back to the next episode of Rupees Over Ramen, the show where we talk about animation, creativity, the creative process, and tons of other nerdy stuff. So we're going to be going into a little bit more of Luca with the world building. And world building is something I really love. And working on the story that I'm working on right now, I love the world building. I'm like, I can't write the dialogue or any of that, but world building, figuring that all out with magic systems and all that fun stuff, it's been so much fun.
Have you ever thought of being a DM for D&D? Kind of a tangent, but like...
I have not. We're going to be talking about D&D on this show because I really wanted to learn more about it, and one of my roommates is into D&D, so... My roommate's like, you could technically DM. I was like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, but...
I mean, there's like the, rolling the dice and all the technical stuff, but the people who I talk to who really, really enjoy DMs, or really, really enjoy DMing, are the ones who really enjoy world building and creating, like, a story and a world and, like, magic system and all that fun stuff to be able to, like, create a fun environment for all of your players. So
yeah, no.
I don't know, when you were just talking about like world building and how you enjoyed it, I was like, James might really enjoy being a DM on D&D.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was talking to my friend about this. Basically a quick recap of what this show would be about. Urban, fantasy, magic, stuff like that. But I was talking to him about the idea of possibly doing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with this story, and then taking what happens in those campaigns and like writing it into the story.
That would be cool. Yeah, creating like almost an animation based off of the D&D campaign.
Yeah, and there's been people that have done that before.
There have those things that have come up, but they're cool. They're all like really cool, and they're like successful.
And I think that would be a really cool way once I have the world all built and stuff, just to kind of play a campaign in it. So I don't know, maybe I'll be the DM for that.
I mean, it's cool too because it's not just your idea. Like you create the environment in the world, and like the players create the story.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah, and that's the part I really want to see, because I really love stories where different people can kind of put in their input. When it's just one person working on a story, sometimes it's not as vastly different. It's like the same thing. So yeah. So getting into world building, you have
back to Luca.
Back to Luca, the Dungeons and Dragons campaign of Luca. You got Porto Rosso, which is this port city. You got Vespas, and you got all this stuff going on. So first, starting out with the world building, Pixar does really well in introducing you to these ideas in these worlds as the movie is starting, or even before you've seen the movie. One thing is with trailers, but also with the movies that came before, because as you guys know with Pixar movies, you always got that reference. And in Soul, they had a reference to Porto Rosso.
I never watched Soul.
Oh really? It was a really good movie.
I always saw like people like watching it around me, but I was like, I don't want to watch it like halfway in between. I'll just watch it around, and I never did.
We'll have to watch it sometime. The end was kind of disappointing to me.
Oh.
But then Disney released like this, they released all these shorts based on these worlds, and the short for Soul is a perfect end to the movie. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I was like, okay, I am satisfied. I'm satisfied with my care.
Baymax.
So we talked about it a little bit in the first episode, but Porto Rosso is kind of this fictional town built off of the names Porto Venere and Monte Rosso, and these are towns in Italy.
Is the town based on those towns, or just the name?
Just kind of the name is one of the biggest things that they were talking about. But it kind of reminds me of the idea of getting to Big Hero 6, Baymax, and the town of San Francisco. And I think it's really cool when you can take...
I was like, how does Baymax... Don't you mean like Big Hero 6?
Yeah, Big Hero 6.
I was like, Baymax, what does that have to do with
My brain
cities?
just went, whew. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of tangents on the show, by the way, but kind of going and connecting it to other stories. So with that, you have the town of San Francisco. I think it's really cool when you can create this physical town, because you don't have to be totally by the book. This is what it looks like on the map. This is what we're doing. You can change it up a bit, and you can just make your own town. That helps build the story. So I think they did that really well. The other thing that I really liked with world building was with the stuff that they did under the water. And as the movie was starting, and they had the little fish, and it like bleeded. That's like what goats do.
Oh,
like the bat.
Yeah. Goatfish.
I was captured by that. I was like, yes, this is awesome. And how they were harvesting seaweed and kelp. That's like beautiful. I was watching with my
farmer fish.
Yeah, I was watching with my friend Everett, and we're just like, yes, this actually makes sense. This is like what would be going on. It's really cool. So you have these goatfish, and they're kind of similar to regular goats on the land. Like they have a lot of mischief, and they're actually based on a real fish. They don't look anything like they do in the movie. movie. But
They're based on a fish that acts like a goat?
no, the fish is called the goat fish.
Oh.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like they do in the movie, but I think it was still pretty cool. The other thing with world building that they did in here was the gelato and summers in coastal towns. And those were things that the director, Enrico Casarosa, wanted to really work into the story because those are things that meant something to him. And I think that was really cool because there's been things like that in my life that mean something to me that maybe are kind of, they don't seem super meaningful. For instance, one of those things is like Italian ice on the 4th of July. That's something that's like part of my life and it means something to me. And I think it's really cool how he was able to work gelato and coastal towns into this story. He's not just making a story like to make a story, but he's making a story to tell his own story. And I think that was really cool that he was able to do that. So were there any things with world building that you really liked? Like things that you saw?
Like specific to this movie?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, one interesting thing I noticed is like they pretty much isolated it to like only this town. Like you never saw any other towns or anything. Like it was just like this little town was it on an island? I think it's just on the coast.
Yeah, I think it was just on the coast.
And also like an interesting thing is they don't show much of like the sea monsters. It's just like his family.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
There's no like sea monster town. There's no like it doesn't show much of the sea monster culture, which is interesting. I'm not upset about it because it focused more on like, you know, being above ground because it was so different of like where Luca had come from. If it was just like daily life of sea monsters, like okay, I mean, sure.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I love that idea when you're taking someone from a totally different culture or life and putting it in. That's why modern fantasy is so cool to me, because I want to see these fantasy characters coming into a modern world and like reacting to things like root beer floats and
like
donuts.
Are there examples of that?
So I can think of one example. It's on like BYU TV and it's called Dwight in Shining Armor, but it's like these people from medieval times come in and experience these things like donuts and brownies. The reason why I like this is I served a mission, and one of the missionaries that I served with, he was from the Dominican Republic, and he had never experienced a lot of the things in America, like root beer floats and things like that. And the emotions on someone's face when they've tasted that for the first time, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool to see that. So next we're going to be getting into the music and sound design of this. And I love music and sound design with like film scores, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter.
I mean, those are like legendary
film scores. They're like legendary film scores. But even like, I really think the film score of Sorcerer's Apprentice was done really well. And How to Train Your Dragon.
I really like the music in Nausicaa.
Yeah.
And The Valley of the Wind, Studio Ghibli movie. That's like my favorite Studio Ghibli movie, almost entirely because of the music.
Yeah.
I think they do such a good job with the music on that movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's really cool seeing like how they can make this world based on this music and the sound design. And kind of going into that a little bit, the music was by Dan Romer. He was the composer. The reason why Enrico Casarosa reached out to Dan was he would listen to his scores and he'd be like, something about these scores says kids on an adventure ride, like kids having a good time. One thing that they did really cool with this movie was each kid had their own theme. Each one was harmonically compatible, so they could be kind of counterpoints stacked upon each other and played at the same time without clashing too much.
That's really cool. I mean, I didn't even notice that.
So it's really cool.
Which means it was done really well.
Yeah, it's super cool because you have subconsciously sometimes you're kind of feeling this and making these connections. Something that was really interesting also was due to COVID, they had to record the sections of instruments and stuff separately and then mix it later in post.
Oh, interesting.
Which they usually just have the whole orchestra come together and play together. Because of COVID, they had to have groups and sectionals, I guess, of people come in and do it separately, which is a very interesting thing, but they made it work. Like it sounded really good.
It reminds me of like when they do like virtual choirs.
Yeah, definitely. So when Dan Romer was working on this, he would take it, he would work on the music, bring it to Enrico, and Enrico would be like, nah man, that's way too Italian. And like
too Italian.
He would work on it, just do it, and he'd like hand it to him and he'd be like, that's not Italian enough. And he's like, okay, I gotta establish.
So would he
would
he write a song, have the whole orchestra play it, and then Enrico would be like, not good enough.
Not in full, no.
Or would he like do like kind of what like modern music producers do and is like create the song like with the instruments and like virtual instruments, and then like, or is he like, I
would say that he took it like more that way. Because something that you see a lot, which I thought was really interesting at first, but you have composers and they're doing that. They make the whole arrangement on the computer and then listen to it and show it to people and they're like, yeah, that's good. Kind of convert it to sheet music, give it to all the orchestra, and then have it played live. And there is a quality in playing it live that you don't get otherwise.
Yeah, like it's obviously going to be different if you have an orchestra of professional players than if you just have like it just input some notes into like FL Studio or something. Yeah, it'll sound good, but it doesn't have that like organic.
Yeah, because there's kind of like this beautiful imperfection in orchestra music. Even though someone's instrument might be a little bit off tune, or they're playing something a little bit differently, it just comes across so beautiful and like done so well. Yeah, so the defining instrumentation that he came down to for this Italian style was accordion, mandolin, acoustic guitar, and pizzicato strings. And once he had that, Enrico was like, okay, good job, man.
Good job, man.
That's good.
Proper amount of Italian.
And I think it's really cool. When he was working on this, Enrico gave him a playlist of like film scores, folk songs, pop Italian music of that era. And he's like, this is kind of what I want. This is kind of what I want to capture. So he didn't just like leave him blind. Hey, you make Italian music.
Make Italian music. And then run off. Don't make it sound that Italian.
Run off and be like, okay, you got this. But yeah, so when Romer was working on this, it's really interesting. So he's kind of like this old school rock and roller. He has an electric guitar and stuff.
The composer?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And he bought a nylon string classical guitar for this movie so that he could play it. And he plays the guitar and the accordion in the scores. Like he would just sit there in front of
he actually plays
it he would sit there in front of his mic and just play them out and like practice and stuff. I think that is so cool for a composer to do. Like
it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be the accordion in my music. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah,
especially with like how they record each instrument individually. He can do that instead of having to be up front composing.
Yeah,
is the composer always like the director?
Like the conductor. Yeah, it seems like it is, especially if like with John Williams and
I feel like usually that's how it happens.
Howard Shore. Yeah, usually they like write out all the music and then they get up in front of people and conduct it. So I don't know. I think it's probably something that's developed from what a composer is. Like you have Beethoven and he's composing this music and then he's gonna go and be the conductor for that. It's kind of this idea is passed down. But let's throw a little curveball at this music and sound design. So there was a song that inspired the finale of this movie, kind of the feeling of it and kind of what happened. And it was a song by Weezer. Yeah. And it's like, what? And the song was Only in Dreams, which I should have gone and listened to this song, but I thought it was really interesting because when they heard the song, they're like, yes, that's the feeling we want with our finale. And it shows how you can take inspiration from all these different things that maybe aren't related and maybe seem like Weezer is not Italian classical music or music from like the 50s or any, like it doesn't sound Italian at all. But taking that idea and being like, this is what I want. And I think that's really cool.
That is interesting.
They're able to do that and be like, yes, this is my inspiration. It kind of going to Hayao Miyazaki, that was kind of with him, where a lot of his inspiration, like Ghibli, the company, was named after an Italian aircraft, like an Italian plane. And he kind of has this idea of flight worked throughout his stories. And there's also kind of this feeling of Italian and French in a lot of his stories.
Yeah, especially like Porco Rosso.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's Japanese anime, but that Italian has that influence on him, and then the Japanese has an influence on Enrico, like watching this Japanese animation. And I think that's just really cool how each culture is lending to each other. It's kind of like this circle that just comes together. The other thing just throughout this whole movie was starting in 2019, they were working on the animation, music, all that partially remote. They started out kind of doing things the normal way, but when COVID hit, they had to do things differently. And I think it's really cool how they were able to adapt and do that. When you're like a large business, you have to be very careful.
That makes sense.
So that there's not repercussions that come on down the line. But yeah, this whole movie altogether, I really liked how they did it. Got me crying like at part of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's this really interesting thing going on throughout this movie of family and what that means and acceptance. And there's a lot of non-acceptance and prejudice going on in this world right now. And it's really cool to see like a message like that where it's like this acceptance, this idea of acceptance and just a pure friendship between two people that can help both of them. Yeah, 3 people, 4 people. And it's just really cool kind of breaking down those barriers, especially with Massimo. I'm just gonna keep talking about that man. It's just really cool. He reminds me kind of John Silver from like Treasure Planet, and just that idea of this very rugged buff dude, but he has the heart of gold, and he's just like, he's best dad. He's awesome.
Dad.
But yeah, really enjoyed talking about this movie, and guys gotta stay tuned for the next episode. We're super excited with what's coming up next. And thanks, Nolan, for coming on
Thank
the
you
show
for
today.
inviting me. I appreciate it.
It's been really cool. And if you haven't seen Luca, I hope I didn't spoil it too much, and go watch it. Enjoy that movie.
I think we kind of spoiled quite a bit.
But you can watch it and appreciate all the beautiful
Watch it again.
things. Yeah.
Watch it again. And
You can see that and you can be like, wait, you can be like that cool kid. You know, like the transformation rig that they used here was pretty sweet.
You can watch it again and be like, I definitely didn't learn this from Bit by Bit James's podcast. I just know it all. I'm cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm probably going to rewatch it after this. Be like, ooh, music, transformation, rigs.
Yeah.
Brain math.
It's so cool, like
analytics,
being able to see all that, and I'm really excited for the show to continue and to kind of talk about that. Thanks guys for joining us again today, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.